Man, it's so good to be in church today. I want to welcome and say hi to all those watching online. My mom always watches, and I always like to say hi to her, and she's doing great. She said, the trees are turning up in Maryland. I said, well, it's hot here. She said, that's your choice. And then we have so many people watching online. We have our friends in Washington State. We have Deanie in Fayetteville, and all kinds of different people around the world. We have our friends at Fort Hood. So it's fun to watch and get emails from people watching. So if you're watching online, send me an email. Tell me you're from, and I'll give you a shout out. I don't know what that's worth, but anyway. Hey, I want to say hey, everybody, to the West End campus. Say hey. I know my wife is down there today because she's with her friends, the Garlands. And so I hope you're having a great time at West End. If you're new at West End, go by and see Abe. He'd love to buy you a cup of coffee. And so many great things are happening at our Missouri City campus. And so go by and see Chad Harold. If you're there, he'd love to say hi to you as well. And I also want to give a shout out to the men of the Ramsey unit. The men, listen, I know it's hot where you're watching this today, and I know you made a big effort to be here, and it's not comfortable, and we just want to say we're so glad you're part of this. We hope today encourages you. Let's give those men a big hand, okay? Great. Well, listen, last week we talked about, I liked my sermon last week. You know, I like about 3 of my talks a year. I don't know how you stand for it, but about 3 times a year I go, I like that. And we talked about communication and communication style. And I think the reason I liked it is because it's created so much conversation in my own family and with others about what kind of communicator or ineffective communicator are you? Are you a blaster? Are you a secret code master? Or are you a starvation disaster, okay? And so if you missed it, go to our YouTube channel and watch it. It's really, really helpful and really, really good. I'm not bragging on myself, but I didn't make it up. And anyway, so it's really great. So and I say that, I loved my sermon last week because you're probably not going to like today's. Okay, so today is, you got ups and you got downs, so that's it. Because what we're talking about here is just so difficult. And it's so different for everybody, but we have this one common thing. And the common thing that you and I have together is that we want to be loved. No, bigger than that, we want to feel loved. We don't want to just know that we're loved. We want to experience something that makes us feel loved, feel wanted, feel valued, feel validated, those kind of things. And that's what we're looking to get out of all these relationships. Now, it starts when we're young in our homes, right? But then when we grow into adulthood, we're trying to find other friends and family and romantic relationships that allow us to feel loved. This is the way we're constructed. God created us this way. God describes himself as love. God is love. You've heard of this. And so when he created us in his own image, what he created was a being that needed to express love and somebody that needed to experience love. In fact, God made sure that he communicated clearly that he created you and he loves you. It says that God so loved the world that he gave. He wanted you to know. It wasn't some ethereal thing written in a book. He did something tangible about that. And he loves us perfectly. Now, we don't love perfectly. We're not very good at this, quite frankly. But we are trying. But this is a powerful force, if it's not the most powerful force in our life. This need to feel loved, this need to be loved. It's a powerful thing. And when we're deprived, or we don't feel love for long periods of time, or we're bankrupt in the love department, we'll try just about anything in order for us to feel love. Some healthy, some not. We'll overwork, or we'll try to be successful. We're trying to fill this hole in our life that only God can fill, and this idea of feeling love together. Let me tell you how powerful it is. This is so powerful that our culture has taken this real need that God gives us to be loved and to feel loved, and has created this really narcissistic approach to relationships that we feel like our job, or maybe we don't feel our job, but our approach is to get out of a relationship what we need, and it becomes this 50-50 deal. Have you ever been in a relationship or a marriage? It's 50-50 deal. You know it's a 50-50 deal. It's the I'll scratch your back if you scratch my back deal. You know it's that kind of deal when you start leveraging tasks or things that you've done in order to get your thing. Like, well, I did the dishes, I did that, I did this. I mean, do you think you could do this? I mean, all of a sudden there's a score sheet. And the score sheet, it's in your mind, is something that you keep tally on, and it allows you to go, Okay, I met my thing. Okay, now I can do something for you. You know, that kind of deal. And it's not that obvious, but it's there. It's there. The problem with 50-50 relationships is we spend most of our time in those relationships making sure we get our half. And it just destroys the intimacy that we're trying to actually build. So Jesus, this faith in God, has a different way. He has a different way of approaching these relationships, whether they're friendships or family relationships or romantic relationship or your marriage, that's quite risky, quite frankly. And a lot of times our faith isn't strong enough to live out this thing, but this is the approach that Jesus uses. Now, this is important, okay? Are y'all still with me? This is all the introduction to this bad sermon I got, okay? I mean, I've already lost most everybody at West End's already left. I mean, that's it. It's like, I'm out of here. This ain't going to be any good. Listen, hang with me. This is my preacher moment. You ready for my preacher moment? This is why, if you're dating, listen to me. You won't do this, but I'm telling you to do it. If you're dating somebody that doesn't have a faith in God that's real, a faith in Jesus, a following of Jesus, run away. I know you're in love. You can't talk anybody out of getting a puppy. I know. But you're in love and all this stuff. But I'm telling you, here's the problem. And you should consider this. I'm helping you. If they don't have a faith in God, you're all they got to get their love needs met. And you won't be enough. And it will be exhausting. Thank you very much. Okay, that's it. All I got, yeah. All the married people are going, yeah! I'm living it, baby! All the single people are going, but you don't know, they just love me so much. And they're going to come there. It's called missionary dating. You know, you're hoping eventually. I'm just saying, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure, to be able to say, hey, if you don't have a faith in God, because God wanted you to get the base or the foundation of this love experience that you need in your life. I need it too, from Him. It's not going to be a complete thing because God put humans together. It's not good for man to be alone. That's a real thing. And so being together is important, but it's not everything. So Jesus has this counterintuitive way to approach relationships, and He demonstrates it for us. Let me show you. John chapter 13 says this. Before the feast of the Passover, so Jesus was in Jerusalem, and He was about to take the feast, the Passover feast, because He knew His days were drawing near. This is a big Jewish festival. It's a big deal. And He was in Jerusalem to give His life away and all that stuff right there. And when Jesus knew His hour had come to depart from this world to the Father, so the time was running out. So when time's running out on you and me, you really decide quickly what's important, right? If you're terminally ill or know somebody that's been terminally ill, you recognize a lot of the things that we worry about just aren't that important. When you know your time is running out and your days are short, you realize what's important real quick. And that's kind of what was going on with Jesus here. So He says, John tells us, having loved His own who were in the world, He loved them to the end of the earth, to the end of the world. So here's Jesus. His time's running out. He's figuring out, not that Jesus has to figure anything out, but okay, he's explaining to us what's important, and that is this loving relationship He had with these men and these followers of His. And He says, hey, I love them, and He has this expression. John has this beautiful this expression that says, I love them to the moon and back. I love them to the end of the earth. So He says this amazing thing. I love you, man. I love you, this is it. And that's important, but He didn't stop there. And this is important for us to hear. He doesn't stop there. He shows them. There's a demonstration. It's the next step. Let me show you the demonstration He did. He says, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into His hand and that He was come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside His outer garments and taking a towel, tied it around His waist. Then He poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around Him. So these two ideas. Now, John wrote this years after it happened, but look at all the beautiful detail that he provides us. He got up from supper, and he laid around his upper garments, and he put a towel around it, and he knelt down, and he began to wash the disciples' feet. Now, here in our day and time, we don't really have an appreciation for this because we don't wash feet and we have closed-toed shoes, okay? But let me just try to bring it to life to you a little bit. In the first century, they didn't have closed-toe shoes. Everybody wore Birkenstocks, okay? So they were wearing Birkenstocks or sandals or whatever, and they're walking down these dusty, non-paved roads. And so the tradition was, well, not tradition, it's just sanitary, you know. When you went into a house, there was probably a mudroom area where you sat, took off your sandals, and washed your feet. Now, if you had money, you had servants. And if you had servants, that was the lowest job task of any low-ranking servant. That when the people came in, the owners came in of the house, that the servant would come and wash feet. The other reason that's kind of bring it to life for you, the eating tables of that day, there were no chairs. Everybody sat on the floor. So if you're sitting on the floor, you're very close to your feet. So feet and food, you know. Are you grossed out yet? Okay. So what the picture that John's painting here, so first he says, I love you, man. I love you to the moon and back. I love you guys so much. That's the easy part. Then Jesus springs into action and does something amazing. He does something the lowest of the low servants do when somebody walks into the house, and he put aside his outer garments, he put aside his pride, he put aside all the stuff, and he washed their feet. And so, have you ever washed somebody's feet? I'm not a foot person, okay? Some people are into that freaky stuff, but I'm telling you that. I'm just not into feet, you know. I mean, it's just like, you walk on those things. It's like, get your feet off me, you know, that kind of deal. So, but I've washed Lisa's feet, and I've washed some other people's feet, you know, before, and it is, man, it's something. It's more awkward, actually, to get your feet washed. So, like, for me, like, so I'm going to wash your feet. You know, I got these Austin Power toes. You know what I'm talking about, you know, where they're grinding on it with a, you know, that kind of deal. It's like, I need to go to Gigi's salon over here first. No. And that's the deal, man. Can you imagine? Here's the thing. Can you imagine the Son of God, God incarnate, the Messiah, the Redeemer of the world, our forgiver, leaning down, getting on his hands and knees, and washing these men's dirty, hairy, nasty feet? It's such an expression. It's so visible. It's so tangible. It's so real. And those men sitting there or standing there or whatever they were doing, it was just like, they were freaking out. Peter, in fact, says, you're not going to wash my feet. You're not washing my feet, G. Oh, no, he's coming down the line. Okay, Peter, sit down. No, you're not washing my feet. And Jesus says, unless I wash you, you won't be clean. And so there's this connection. Now, the reason this is a powerful thing in a relationship is because it builds intimacy, it builds connection. And the reason it builds connection, Jesus did this, Jesus was not thinking of himself. He was totally and completely thinking of the other. And that's what builds connection in any relationship, regardless of what kind of relationship it is, but especially a marriage relationship. He wasn't thinking of himself. He was thinking of others. That's what's so counterintuitive, because our world says, get yours. And it's all about you getting yours and you extracting. And that's kind of the word, you know, you're going into a relationship, and you're not saying this because it'd be so stupid if you said this, but you're thinking it, you're saying it, and your mind going, love me, figure out, make me feel loved, make me feel something, make me feel something. And you spend a lot of your, maybe you're not like this, I'm just very insecure, okay? So it's this kind of deal. That's what we want. That's why we get, that's why we have these relationships. This is why we settle for relationships we know aren't right, because they make us feel a certain way. Well, I know, but, he's sweet, or she's sweet. Like, she's crazy. She's crazy. You know she's crazy. Yeah, crazy does. We just settle. You're just like, oh, gosh, okay. Why? Because this need to be wanted and loved is such a power in our life. And Jesus is saying, what if you laid that aside and made that an issue of faith? Now, here's my disclaimer. I'm not saying to be a martyr, But the first thing we notice here in Jesus' expression of love is a selflessness. The ingredients of an intimacy is selflessness. Again, don't be a doormat. It doesn't mean you don't express your loneliness or your hurt, or you express that you feel like that you don't feel wanted or you don't feel loved in a relationship. But this thing is such a powerful thing that if you could somehow find some foothold in your faith with God, that you could empty yourself into a relationship, what would that do for you? Now, the hope is, obviously, that the other person's doing the same thing. Again, my preacher moment, if a person doesn't have a faith in God, you're all they got. And it's like, no, they're going to want their half, and they're going to expect, then once you reach their half, wherever that is, you'll get something back. But the idea, and this is really an idea, is that two people who love God get together and have a relationship, and they both love God, and they're able to empty themselves into a relationship. And it creates this intimacy. So selflessness is a key component. Jesus shows us that. I mean, Jesus could say, hey, I'm the Son of God. I'll be giving my life up in a few days, so I'm going to need my last meal here. I'm going to need some great things. I'm going to need you to do. I mean, he could have taken advantage of the time running out to think of himself and what he wanted to do. Instead, he took the time that was remaining, which wasn't much, and he started thinking about other people. That's what builds connection, and that's what builds a relationship. The second thing he did is that he had humility. Humility is the ingredient that's necessary for you to build intimacy because you're always thinking of the other person. In Philippians chapter 2, it talks about the fact that we should consider others greater than ourselves. And that's kind of what Jesus did. He says, man, you're important. So sit down, you 12 guys. Or 11 guys. I want you to do this and experience this. And so there's a great humility. Pride kills relationships all the time. And the third thing he did is he took action. Saying it is not enough. Believing it is not enough. Feeling it is not enough. You got to do something. It's active. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not self-centered. It's not boasting. Love is not proud. Love is not easily angered. Love doesn't delight in wrongs, but rejoices with the truth. I mean, these are action verbs. This is what love does. And we get into a lazy emotional state where we take people for granted and we say it and we believe it, but we don't do anything. And Jesus didn't do that, man. He got down and he washed their feet. It was just an amazing, amazing thing. And so he wanted them to experience the thing that he was feeling. That's the transference that's needed, and oftentimes that's what's neglected, especially in a marriage that's going a long term, is the fact that you know it, you take it for granted, you get into a rhythm, but there's not this expression, okay? And so this love was so powerful, Jesus turned the tables then, after he washed the feet, later in the chapter, and he says this, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another, not doing the best you can. This is kind of what we do. I'm loving you the best I can. Basically what we're saying is I'm loving other people based on what I know, based on my own experience, based on what I've been trained to do in my home. But Jesus says, no, there's another example. Again, my preacher moment. If you don't have a relationship with God, you're not going to love people as Jesus loved them because you're not going to figure that out. So this is the idea, is love one another just as I loved you. You also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. So that's the deal. I'm all in. I'm going to push all in. Jesus' love for us is unconditional. It's sacrificial. It's humble. That's what we're supposed to love like. And then you're sitting here thinking, but what about me? I get it too. I'm thinking about that too. What about me? But the ideal here is that you have a faith in God and you're with somebody that's got a faith in God, and these are conversations you have. Now, you've got good practice if you have children because you're going to love them unconditionally. They ain't got nothing for you but dirty diapers. I'm telling you. You get that. You know, it's not about them. It's not about what they do. It's not about how they respond. You're just committed because you're their father or you're their mother to love them, and you're going to love them unconditionally. So that's good practice. They say marriage is the beginning step to get rid of all selfishness, and kids is the ending step because there is no, like when you get married, you talk about, well, there's no longer I, it's we. And then when you have children, you don't even know where you are. And it's like, somebody asks you, what do you want to do? And you go, oh, when we had kids, we quit asking that question, you know, what we want to do, that kind of thing. And so this is the idea. How can you enter into these relationships that allow you to express love unconditionally and where you're all in with great amount of faith? Here's another thing. Here's another thing. How can you not settle, this is abstract, but how can you not settle for feeling loved instead of going for being loved? There is a difference. You can go out here today and feel loved in many illicit, inappropriate ways. But being loved and expressing that love to somebody else is so key. And there's 5 love languages, so to speak. Gary Chapman wrote a book. Let me go over these. Last week we talked about 3 different communication styles. This week we're going to talk about 5 different love languages, so that you can kind of figure out, okay, if I'm going to go into this relationship on all in, how can I do something to make you feel loved? Everybody's different. See if you can pick out one for you. Here's a love language, words of affirmation. This is where you tell somebody a lot, I'm proud of you. Man, that was amazing. You're amazing. You celebrate them in a way. You say, I love you a lot, you know? I mean, and Lisa and I had this discussion this week about her love language. She's kind of a hybrid because my wife is totally custom. Okay, listen. She's custom. I mean, she's never went to a restaurant and ordered anything off the menu. It's like, well, I like to have this, and can you mix it with that, and then put it in a blender and do this with it? And it's like, yeah, okay, she's custom. I mean, McDonald's or some fancy place, it doesn't matter. She ain't ordering what you got. I mean, that's it. So she's kind of a hybrid on this, but this is part of it. She started this design business over two and a half years ago that's just gone amazingly well, and she's done some very fun projects in some very fun places, and I'm so proud of her. And I've got to tell myself to tell her that. You know what I'm saying? I'm so proud of it. It could become an internal thing. You know, it's like, so I tell other people. Isn't that funny? I tell other people. I just told you. You know? But am I telling hers? Because she likes some words of affirmation. And this is key. Maybe you grew up in a home like this and they said, I love you all the time. You know? One of the things Lisa's great about is when we're talking on the phone, we can talk about anything. You know, an ant problem in the yard or kid problems or whatever it is. At the end of the day, she goes, okay, love you. Bye. Was you get in this habit of doing that? Y'all do that? Okay, just me. God, I'm a freak. Okay, so she does that. And I do. I love you, bye, and I hang up. Say, I love you, bye. It's just weird when you get your assistant on the phone and out of habit, you say, okay, yeah, I'll be at the meeting. Love you, bye. Oh, got to call her back. I got to hey, don't call HR. Listen. Just a habit thing. Has that ever happened? Okay, it's weird. Okay, so words of affirmation. Is this you or is this the person you're in a relationship with? Is this your children? You've got to figure this out for your children. What is this? Do they love that? Do they love for us to make a deal about them? Hey, I'm proud of you, man. This is amazing. The second one is this, acts of service. This is somewhere between here is Lisa, acts of service. I do things for her. I grew up doing dishes. My mom always made me do dishes, and I ended up loving it. I like cleaning pots and pans, and the dirtier, the better. I used to be a bus boy at the Catfish Hut in Lake Grapevine, okay? And I scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed, and I love it. My wife doesn't care to do dishes, but she likes to cook. She wrote a cookbook. So as she cooks, I clean. I like to scrub toilets. It's weird. I don't know why, but I'll scrub a toilet. I'm not scrubbing many toilets these days, but I don't mind doing that. But anything I can do so she doesn't have to do. One of the things growing up my stepfather did for my mom that was so nice is that my stepfather would fill up my mom's car with gas once a week. My mom hardly ever had to fill up her own car with gas, so that's something I do for Lisa. You know, I try to fill up her car with gas. And then her car gets dirty, and so I clean it. Like yesterday, I had her car clean because I needed something to talk about today. And yeah, and I had it cleaned, and she appreciated it, and her car was filthy. She goes, you worked so hard on that. I said, well, I waited an hour and a half for the guys to finish, if that's what you're saying. But she appreciates it. Cars, gas, that kind of acts of service says something about that to her when I do something for her. The third thing, and this is receiving gifts. Now, receiving gifts is neither Lisa nor I's love language. I mean, we just don't hardly exchange gifts at all. I like buying her gifts, but they don't communicate. And we're in a stage in life, like, I just don't know what you could buy me. Like Christmas, anniversaries, birthdays. I mean, we'd rather go on a trip or have an experience than we would have to have a trinket, you know? But some people really like flowers or something that I was thinking about you, and there's this tangible symbol that you're able to purchase at a store and wrap up in a nice thing. Listen, guys, go to Walmart or something like this and get one of those bags with the fluffy paper, put something in it. It's genius. It's genius. That's a free tip right there, man. That's free, okay? That's it. So receiving gifts might be the thing for you. Now, I like giving gifts, but I don't like receiving this. Then I realized my wife doesn't speak her language, so I don't buy her many gifts. Once in a while, I'll do. Anyway, 4, here's the deal. Quality time. This is where you just spend time together. This is your like if in this busy life, you start getting love depraved if you don't spend time with the person you love, whether it's your children or your husband or wife, and you don't get time together. Like if you travel a lot for your business, this is difficult. So if you like to cuddle and sit around on the couch and watch Netflix, binging stuff, then all of a sudden this is your love language, and you got to figure out this is meaningful for them. And then the fifth one is this physical touch. This is you reach over to grab a hand or a kiss, or this is where the sexual experience within a marriage is happening, and this is the deal. This is what makes you feel loved. And a lot of times, this is why Jesus talked about the fact that don't marry somebody outside a believer. And here's the thing. I'm going to say something. No, God, maybe I should. I wish my wife was here. She would tell me don't do. I just think, here's the thing. I'll say this because I'm old and I can say crap. Now, listen. I just think, I know everybody's hooking up, I know this. And I just know everybody's having sex outside of marriage. I get that, okay. I just saying, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Because what happens is, and this is me preaching, please ignore this. This is me saying this. When you do this, when you jump from hello to the bed, then all of a sudden, it becomes a feeling and emotion, and your evaluation skills go out the door. And you feel like you fall in love with somebody. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, you realize this person's a rat or crazy or nuts. And it's like, what am I doing? But you had that feeling. That's how powerful it is. Why am I talking about this? So physical touch is important. Just don't start there, okay? That's the deal. Okay, that's my sermon. I get it. Ha! All the married people are going, yeah. He knows what he's talking about. You start hooking up, you fall in love. It's like trying to get a puppy. You never can talk anybody out of getting a puppy. It's like, but I love him so much. Oh, I bet you do. And give it a few months. So that's the deal. So this is important. This is action. This is action. You got to act. Listen, if your spouse, here's what it is. Lisa likes words of affirmation. Here's another tip. Men, listen to me. Tip, free. Okay. Here's the deal. If this is your wife or the person, listen, when my wife gets ready to go out to do something, like we're going to go on a date. We went out last night on a date, went to a fun place. And listen, I've got to kind of sit on the edge of my seat because she gets ready and it takes her longer. God, does it take her a long time. And takes her longer. And when she comes out of the bathroom or the area, and here's what I've learned, man. Here's the tip. If your wife has to ask you, how do I look? Brother, you're late. You're late. You're totally and completely late. So you got to be on the edge of your seat. Hear those footsteps coming? She's coming out. You look great. Oh, man, you look good. Woo! You are hot tonight. Yes. I mean, you can be early, but you can't be late. Like you hear her coming through the door, but the door is closed. Start shouting it. Baby, you look so fine. She'll say, I'm not even out there yet. I can feel it. And then you play some music, like this would be great. Get your little jukebox thing that does Bluetooth thing, and you get there, and you play, you're like, Here Comes the Bride, or some kind of dramatic music. So when she walks through the doors, it's ta-da. My wife likes that kind of stuff, But it gets complicated because then she'll start asking specific questions. Like I say, you look great. You do. You look great. I never fake that. You look great. And then she'll say, well, what about my hair? Dang it, I should have said something about her hair. Yeah, your hair looks great too. I don't know if it does. I mean, it's just like, it looks great. You like the curls, you want it up or down? Oh, dang, I didn't know there was going to be a quiz. It's like, I'm Googling, I'm on Pinterest trying to find hairstyles. It's like, you got to figure it out. And what I've told Lisa, Access Service, for example, what I've told Lisa is this. I've said, listen, I love you, and I want you to have a good life, and I'm your best shot. I really am. I'm your best shot at this, you know? I mean, really. And so I want to do something to make her life better. You know, when we go to the airport, I carry all the bags. She goes, I can carry something. No, I'm carrying the heavy loads. I'm carrying the heavy loads in this deal. I got a backpack on and both her bags, and she's over there with a purse going, doing her nails. I got this, babe, you know, that kind of thing. Because I want to communicate something. You see, that's what happens. Listen, I give this great impression that our marriage is awesome and awesome all the time. It's not. There's seasons, and there's times when she feels neglected or love deprived, and same with me. So that's why the communication is important, and that's why this is important. Because I'm telling you, and I'll finish with this, because I am so hungry. This is the deal. You got to pay attention to this in your marriage, in your life, in your relationships, because it's a driving force in your soul. This is how God made you. So you've got to figure out how to meet other people's needs and get your eyes off yourself and trust the Lord in a big way and see if you can't make your relationships better. I think those are the ingredients. I don't know how to do it, and it's hit and miss most of the time. But let's just stumble forward together and try to figure this out. Let's pray together. Will you pray with me? Father in heaven, thank you for loving me. Thank you for showing me that you love me and giving me this opportunity to love others. May we somehow have enough faith in you to take our eyes off ourselves so we can be all in our relationships. That's scary, God, because who's going to look out for us? And we have to come to the conclusion you are. You are. And may we not be martyrs or doormats, and may we not be expressive. May we be able to articulate in our closest of relationships how we are feeling so that we can get better at this. But may our focus be on how to love well. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.